Japan built 12 cars so dominant, racing officials had to rewrite the rulebook to stop them. Not once, 12 times. And number 1? Banned on 3 continents. Don't you dare click away. Every car on this list was completely legal. Every single one was absolutely dominant. And every one got shown the door, not because they cheated, but because nobody could figure out how to beat them any other way. 12 cars. 12 bans. Stay till number 1. Because Godzilla doesn't lose. Godzilla gets banned. Number 12. The 1992 Mazda 787B. And we are opening with something that should not have been allowed to exist. Mazda didn't build a race car. They built a loophole with an engine attached. While everyone else showed up to Le Mans with conventional pistons, Mazda showed up with a 4-rotor Wankel rotary screaming at 10,500 revolutions per minute. It didn't thump like a normal engine. It shrieked. Like something alive and genuinely furious about being on a racetrack. And it didn't just compete. It won. The 1991 24 Hours of Le Mans. Outright. The only rotary-powered car to ever win the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the most grueling endurance race on the planet. The engine made 900 horsepower. They dialed it back to 700 just to make sure it survived the full 24 hours. They left 200 horsepower sitting on the table. And still won. Think about that for 1 second. They handicapped themselves by 200 horsepower. Racing officials had just watched Japan walk into Europe and dismantle the finest machinery on European soil. In front of a European crowd. They were not going to let it happen again. Before the 787B could return and defend its title, the FIA rewrote the Group C regulations entirely, mandating 3.5-liter naturally aspirated engines. Engines the rotary simply couldn't be adapted to meet. One rule. One stroke of a pen. The most dominant endurance car Japan ever built, erased from competition forever. Mazda won Le Mans once. They were never given the chance to win it again. 185 horsepower. 8,500 revolutions per minute. Next car didn't even have 200 horsepower total. And they still banned it. Because what Japan built next wasn't about power at all. It was about something far more dangerous than power. Number 11. The 1985 Toyota Corolla AE86. And before you laugh, you genuinely need to hear this. Most people know the AE86 from anime and drift videos. What they don't know is that before it became a global pop culture icon, it was getting physically removed from racetracks by officials who didn't know what else to do with it. The AE86 arrived in SCCA, America's premier road racing series, in the showroom stock class. And it had one serious advantage over everything else. It was lighter. Not because Toyota cheated on the scales. Because Japanese engineering in 1985 was simply that far ahead of everyone else on the planet. Thin sheet metal, stripped interior, a high-revving twin-cam engine making real power without big displacement. The car weighed next to nothing and handled like it was reading the road's mind before the driver even turned the wheel. Competitors complained. Officials investigated. And rather than admit that Toyota had simply built a better car, they reshuffled the entire class regulations overnight to neutralize it. Weight minimums changed. The AE86 advantage disappeared. Not because it broke the rules. Because the rules got rewritten specifically around it. 128 horsepower. That is genuinely all it had. And it was still considered too dangerous to be allowed to compete. They didn't need 500 horsepower to scare the competition. They just needed precision. And precision, it turned out, was just as dangerous as any turbocharger ever built. 185 horsepower. 8,500 revolutions per minute. Honda sent a Civic to a professional touring car championship. And it won. Until someone looked at the software, and everything changed overnight. Number 10. The 1994 Honda Civic Type R EK9. And Honda arrived at the British Touring Car Championship with a very specific plan. On paper, a 1.6-liter front-wheel drive economy car. Something your neighbor drives to pick up groceries. On track, a 185 horsepower screamer revving to 8,500 revolutions per minute that handled corners like it had something deeply personal against understeer. Other manufacturers brought bigger engines, more cylinders, more displacement, more money. Honda brought engineering. And engineering won. Until officials looked too closely. During technical inspections, they found software calibrations inside the engine management system that fell outside strict BTCC homologation parameters. Calibrations that had no business being there. Honda called it optimization. Officials called it something else entirely. The car was excluded. Results wiped completely from the record. Honda sent back to the drawing board with nothing to show for the season. But here is what makes this story genuinely different from everything before it. The Civic Type R wasn't banned because it was dangerous. It wasn't banned because anyone got hurt. It was banned because Honda's engineers simply could not help themselves. They just kept pushing and pushing and pushing until they crossed a line so fine that most people would never have even noticed it was there. That is not cheating. That is obsession. And honestly, if you know anything about Honda, that is the most Honda thing that has ever happened. Number 9 didn't have a software problem. It had something officials had genuinely never encountered before, an engine so fundamentally unusual that nobody could agree on how to classify it. By the time they figured it out, it had already embarrassed everything on the grid and driven away. Number 9. The 1992 Mazda RX-7 FD. And Mazda was absolutely at it again. On the street, 255 horsepower, twin-turbocharged rotary, sequential turbos eliminating lag completely and delivering power in one seamless relentless surge that never seemed to end. Weight of just 2,800 pounds distributed almost perfectly 50/50ths. A physicist's idea of what a sports car should feel like on a good day. In IMSA racing, it was something else entirely. The rotary engine created a classification nightmare that nobody had prepared for. Displacement calculations that worked perfectly for piston engines simply didn't translate to Wankel geometry. And Mazda's engineers knew this better than anyone. They used every single millimeter of that ambiguity to their advantage. Every single one. Officials spent months arguing about how to properly classify the rotary. Months of meetings. Months of paperwork. By the time they finally reached a conclusion, the RX-7 had already gone out and embarrassed Porsches, Corvettes, and purpose-built race cars with far bigger budgets and far more expensive engineers. Mazda didn't break the rules. They exposed a gap in them so wide, you could drive a rotary engine straight through it. And they did. Officials were not amused. They rarely were when Japan showed up. Number 8 looked completely harmless. A family sedan. 4 doors. The kind of thing parked outside supermarkets on Saturday mornings. Mitsubishi brought it to the World Rally Championship. And it started beating cars that had absolutely no business being beaten by someone's grocery run. Number 8. The 1989 Mitsubishi Galant VR4. And Mitsubishi played this one perfectly. 4 doors, practical proportions. It looked like something a middle school principal drives to work on Monday morning. Nobody feared the Galant VR4. Nobody even looked at it twice in a parking lot. That was the entire strategy from the beginning. Underneath that completely unremarkable shell, a turbocharged 2.0-liter engine pushing 240 horsepower through a sophisticated all-wheel drive system that ate gravel rally stages for breakfast. And asked for seconds. The problem was not the performance. It was the paperwork. WRC homologation rules required manufacturers to build a minimum number of road-legal units before a car could compete. Mitsubishi's documentation did not add up. A translation problem between Japanese and European bureaucracy? An honest mistake somewhere in a filing cabinet? Nobody ever got a straight answer. What they did get was a disqualification. Mitsubishi went back to Japan. Sat down. And instead of accepting the lesson, they took extremely detailed notes. They returned with something far more dangerous. They called it the Lancer Evolution. You are going to hear about it very shortly. And when you do, you will understand exactly what taking notes looks like when Mitsubishi is the one holding the pen. Number 7 looked even more innocent. Boxy. Understated. Built, honestly, like someone drew it from memory on a napkin. Nobody in the paddock was intimidated. Every single one of them should have gone home immediately. Number 7. The 1993 Subaru Impreza WRX. And absolutely nobody saw this coming. Subaru. The brand your dentist drives to work on Monday morning. The brand that dismantled professional rally teams on weekends with that exact same badge. Same key. Completely different animal underneath. Built around a turbocharged flat-4 engine and a symmetrical all-wheel drive system that gave it traction other rally cars could only read about in engineering textbooks. On loose gravel. On deep mud. On ice. It genuinely did not matter what surface you put it on. The Impreza just gripped and went. Colin McRae threw it sideways into corners at speeds that made co-drivers sincerely question every career decision they had ever made. And it came out the other side faster than anything with a logical reason to be moving that quickly. By 1995, Subaru had the Constructors' Championship. By 1997, they had 3 of them. The competition was not just losing. They were being systematically and completely dismantled by a car from a manufacturer best known for building all-wheel drive wagons for people who ski on weekends. Group A regulations eventually became impossible to compete under. The rules were restructured into the World Rally Car format. A change that many in the paddock quietly admitted was designed to reset a playing field that Subaru had spent 3 full years owning. They did not ban the Impreza outright. They just burned down the entire rule book it was winning under. Same result. Much cleaner paperwork. Remember Mitsubishi taking notes after the Galant got thrown out? Number 6 is exactly what those notes produced. The Lancer Evolution 5. And this time, they got caught after winning. Which means right now, the official record books are lying to you. Number 6. The 1998 Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 5. And Mitsubishi did not take the lesson from the Galant. They took extremely detailed notes and built something that made the Galant look timid, lower, wider, meaner in every single way. 2.0-liter turbocharged engine producing exactly 280 horsepower, the precise maximum allowed under Japanese domestic regulations. Not 1 horsepower more. Not because Mitsubishi could not extract more power. Because 280 was the specific number that kept officials from looking too hard at everything else. They looked anyway. During a technical inspection mid-season, WRC engineers found active yaw control technology that was never once mentioned in the homologation documents. A system quietly redistributing torque between the rear wheels in ways that gave the Evo 5 cornering ability that simply defied what its suspension geometry should physically have been capable of. Mitsubishi's explanation was carefully worded. Officials were not satisfied with carefully worded. The car was excluded. Sanctions followed. Tommi Mäkinen, the man who had been winning championships in this exact machine, watched real victories disappear from the official record. But here is the part that should genuinely bother you. Mitsubishi did not get caught before they won. They got caught after. Which means right now, in the official record books, there are victories that happened in real life. That real people witnessed. That real drivers celebrated. And are listed as if they never occurred at all. History does not always tell the truth. Sometimes a rule book rewrites it for convenience. Number 5. Toyota came with one objective: win. Built a car that could do exactly that. Then their engineers could not resist making it just slightly faster than the rules permitted. That one decision cost them an entire calendar year of racing. Number 5. The 1994 Toyota Celica ST205. And Toyota had one single objective: win everything. The most aggressive Celica ever built. Turbocharged 2.0-liter producing 300 horsepower in full race trim. All-wheel drive. Bodywork covered in aerodynamic additions that looked like Toyota's engineers had never once been told the word enough. On rally stages, devastating. Fast. Planted. Completely and brutally efficient in every condition. But Toyota wanted more. Of course they did. Hidden inside the intake system, engineers had quietly installed a secondary turbo restrictor bypass. A tiny, almost completely invisible modification that opened under specific conditions, allowing more air into the engine than the regulations permitted. More air meant more boost. More boost meant more power. Power that was never supposed to exist in that car. Officials found it in 1995. Toyota disqualified from the manufacturer's championship. Banned from the entire 1996 WRC season. A full year. Gone. Just like that. But here is the part that the story is really about. When Toyota returned in 1997, under maximum scrutiny, under the harshest spotlight in rallying, they won the Constructors' Championship anyway. Some teams get caught and fall completely apart. Toyota got caught, sat out a full year, and came back considerably hungrier than when they left. That says absolutely everything about what kind of manufacturer Toyota actually is deep down. Number 4 didn't look fast. Didn't sound threatening. A completely ordinary midsize family saloon with sensible fuel economy. Nissan sent it to the British Touring Car Championship looking entirely harmless. That was never an accident. That was always the complete strategy.